Yo, fuck. Fancy starting a video like that. I want to talk to you today about closure in relationships and not leaving loose ends around in your life, because these loose ends with unresolved patterns in relationships end up haunting you and really taking a lot of energy. It's unconsciously draining you of energy, unconsciously making you afraid of making moves in your life, making you afraid of being your most expressive, glowing, boldest self. And specifically what I'm talking about is a couple of patterns I've noticed in myself where I haven't been good at articulating boundaries. I've actually felt emotions and I've been so afraid of a volatile response and so afraid that I won't be able to communicate those emotions in a loving enough way that I've ended up suppressing, or I don't know if it's repress or suppress, but I've ended up stifling those emotions and pretending that I'm okay when I'm clearly not in my body. And this is something I'm so much better at now, but it has been quite a painful process, a healthy, painful process of realizing these things, learning to drop the guilt and the shame and just accept that the pattern has been that way, and then to make it right. Making it right by having conversations with people who I've withdrawn from, who don't understand why I've withdrawn. Making it right by committing not to overstretch myself and committing not to betray my body's needs in that way anymore. And lastly, by just being really open about the fact this has been a pattern. That's the last part of discharging the shame. So like today I've had 2 conversations with friends who I withdrew from because I felt that there was an intensity that I couldn't match, or a level of communication which they were giving to the relationship that I felt I was unable to show up for. The thing is though, that's not their fault. It's my fault for not communicating the state I was in and my needs. You can't put these things on other people. For all I know, and I'm not saying this is the case, but for all I know, I could have such an avoidant pattern that creates these more anxious responses in others where they keep trying to reach out and to connect, but feeling like I'm just never able to meet them there. Equally, these other people could be really anxious people who really want to connect and need that so badly that sometimes they deliberately overlook the signs of withdrawal from me because they don't want to accept that maybe they are a little bit needy and anxious. But if I were to focus on that, which may not be true, then that would prevent me from being able to shift the pattern, which is either way causing me pain. So when we're talking about shifting these relational patterns, it's not just for other people. It's for ourselves as well. It's for everyone. It's so that we can experience a love and a connection which looks exactly how we would love it to be, and which isn't riddled with these unconscious arbitrary conditions that we've inherited from whatever relating pattern we grew up with or was installed through traumatic events in life. So yeah, I've sent a couple messages tonight and I've owned these patterns in myself. I've acknowledged the pain that they've caused for me and for others, but in the conversation I'm focusing on the pain that I've caused that other person, and I'm apologizing and I'm owning my part. My role in that conversation isn't for them to know how much I'm hurting and for them to see me in that and comfort me in that. That's my role, to comfort myself, to show up for myself and to be that safe place for myself. So in the conversations, it's about communicating clearly and expressing my remorse, not in an overly guilty way, not because I'm a terrible person, but still acknowledging the fact that I'm inherently someone who does their best and makes mistakes, and that can cause pain. And what I've found when I approach conversations in this way with the people I love is that I almost invariably receive a really positive response, because I'm not communicating to shift the blame onto them. I'm not passing the buck. It stops with me, and at the same time, I'm acknowledging that it affects all of us. So this is perhaps one of the most transformative commitments that I've made in my life. It's one of the most healing things I've done for myself, because I don't have these open tabs in my subconscious mind where I'm fearing that I'm not who I say I am, that I'm out of integrity. I don't have this low-level, constant, draining, grinding anxiety about the fact that I'm being disingenuous and inconsistent. Because what can happen if you don't show up honestly for yourself with other people is you end up becoming almost impossible to read and very confusing. For me, this looked like a chameleon behavior where I would essentially morph to whatever I thought the other person would want me to become. So textbook people-pleasing tendency. And this people-pleasing tendency often, if not always, comes with repression or suppression of anger. Because naturally, if you're crossing your own boundaries all the time and you're constantly accommodating other people without acknowledging the fact that you're not equipped to do so, then you're betraying your body's needs, your fundamental biological needs, over and over again. And that self-betrayal creates an internal rift between the function of your ego or identified mind and your biology. And that forms the potential for ongoing illness because of that suppressed emotion in the form of physical pain, joint pain, arthritis. I've had spinal stenosis. I've had so many things like gut issues. Essentially, this inflammation, which is unprocessed information, which is distorted energy, which can't be exchanged cleanly between people and within our own system, it has to find somewhere to store itself. And so your body is going to present issues in whatever way you're genetically predisposed to and based on whatever lifestyle you live. This is so important in healing. It is so important in creativity. It's so important in forming healthy, productive relationships. Productive in the sense that they bring a lot of joy for everyone involved and that they form the environment where people can process the things that they're struggling with. In fact, I would say that this work is so important that if you're not turning over that rock to have a little bit of a look at it, you may be pissing into the wind with a lot of your other work. These relational dynamics exist not just between people as individuals, they exist between us and our financial life, between us and our training, between us and everything we relate to, because it's not just an interpersonal dynamic, it is an identity dynamic. It is a personal reality, a personality. The thoughts and beliefs about who we are, what's safe and what's unsafe, which form these human interaction behaviors, also inform most of our behaviors. And that is another fascinating area to dive into, the ins and outs of how that works. To very briefly touch on it, one example for me would be feeling that I was either afraid of my father's attention or didn't want to become my father because of his intensity, and feeling like I could never have enough of my mother's attention because of the lack of closeness there. Both my parents were as close to me as they could be. They were as loving as they knew how to be, and they were wonderful, wonderful human beings. Well, my mum is. My dad has passed away. There is nothing that changes that. There's nothing that changes how wonderfully, wonderfully blessed and grateful I am to have had that upbringing and the opportunities that they gave me. And what's also true is that there was a lot of pain there. And it's not just my pain. For a long time, I was really upset about it from a perspective of, I've been so wounded and it's not my fault, and why couldn't my parents be different? Think about why your parents are the way they are. Think about why the people who interact with you are the way they are. Why do they inflict wounds upon you unconsciously? They know no better. And when people do know better and they still inflict wounds upon you, then have compassion for them, because they're definitely hurting themselves at the same time, and they know it. So this process is about discharging those patterns by recognizing them and by recognizing the inherent lovingness and life-giving nature that we all have beneath those patterns, and the patterns just obscure that and they prevent us from meeting each other fully and connecting the way we could. And it's often the case that when you have one parent who is intense, the other one will be avoidant, or, you know, one smothers you, the other one's never there. Because in any family dynamic or any relational dynamic, it's like the equation somehow has to balance. And when there's a plus in one part, there's going to be a minus in another part. So there has to be a form of homeostasis or equilibrium or stability in order for that relational system to maintain itself. We're talking about dynamic systems theory here. We're talking about internal family systems. We're talking about the fact that there are these parts, both on the internal level. We can talk about parts of our psyche, parts of our identity, mind, body, emotions, and different characteristics that we've embodied. We can talk about parts within a family and the different roles we play, like son or brother or sister or mother or father or whatever. And where we can then talk about parts within a community or within a locality or within a culture, and then within like the global sphere. So by identifying and recognizing these dynamics in yourself, what you're actually doing is recognizing the broader dynamic that exists in the world, and you're seeing how the macrocosm of that is showing up in the microcosm of you. As within, so without. As above, so below. As the universe, so the soul. These hermetic principles reflect the sort of unfolding, fractal nature of existence, where these dynamics are nested within one another at various scales and to various degrees. But when you're doing this relational work, don't get too caught up thinking, oh no, woe is me, this is so terrible, what have I done to deserve this? I'm so bad, I can't believe how much I've hurt people. You can witness the pain it's caused and recognize the pain it causes for all of us, including you. Recognize that these are things which are showing up in you as reflections of the world, and what you see in the world, the problems that you see in the world, the things that you can't help but focus on, and the beauty that you maybe can't help but focus on as well, is a reflection of your own beauty. So it's a house of mirrors. The world, Maya, samsara, the illusion, is a house of mirrors, and what is real is the innate connectedness and fundamental co-arising of everything. It's the Buddhist concept of co-arising and interconnectedness, where below the level of thinking and beliefs and below the level of these strange relational dynamics, we don't really know why they exist or where they come from, other than why the fuck not? Beneath that, it's the same weave, it's the same ocean, it's the same fabric. We are connected, and there is an experience of unity which is available when these conditioned patterns start to soften and dissolve, or when they start to shift and transform at the same rate that presence and the unconscious body transforms. So if the world is an unthinking and yet infinitely intelligent system, then when you remove the layer of calculation and second guessing and stuckness in certain perspectives and patterns, which are actually just memories of the past that you can't help but drag into the present, when you remove that glitchy, laggy, jumbled, stuck, unprocessed shit, the rate at which your consciousness expands is the same rate that the universe is expanding. And in matching that expansion, you're able to embody an existence which feels divine. It actually feels divine, where the connectedness between you and everything that you see is as tangible and as real, except it feels more tangible, more real, and more true and more present than the ground under your feet. The concept of self, the concept of other dissolves completely, and it becomes clear how everything that is happening, and there is no particular doer. You're not the doer, no one else is the doer. Everything is connected, but nothing is attached. Everything is happening, but no one is doing it. So there is a nothingness and an emptiness, a vacancy at the level of thinking, and an absolute fullness and overflowing, ecstatic, orgasmic completion at the level of unspeakable being. That's how it works. We don't spend all of our time experiencing that. There is a natural dance, a natural fluctuation, an oscillation, a sine wave to the vibration of life, and the way this beautiful music, the strings that make up reality, the way they operate, it's weaving and winding up and down, left and right. But don't make the mistake of thinking you know which way is up and which way is down. You're just along for the ride. Take it as it comes. And remember that what shows up in you is what's showing up everywhere. And therefore, any work that you sincerely do within yourself is work that is sincerely done for the collective. And through you, this work is being done, and this life is being loved for all of us. All right, that's enough of my rant. I hope you have a wonderful night. Speak to you soon.